I'm so excited. Hi, everybody. Hi, Chrissy. Hi, Claire. So pumped. So Cait, do you have a presentation that you're going through? Okay, so you should be able to share your screen if you'd like. And just like while you're getting that set up, I'd love to just read a little bit about what you're going to be talking about today and just a little brief introduction so that everyone knows who you are. So I'll get started with that. And then I'll let you take it away if you're ready. Is everything good on your end? You like just got your video up.
Yep, I just moved my slides over to this tab, so I'll hit share when I'll let you know if anything crazy happens.
Beautiful. All right, everybody. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. We're going to start like right on time, which never happens. But we have Cait McKay here, and Cait is a multi-passionate Baltimore-based entrepreneur, creative, advocate, and she has just like this awesome gift of helping people think in just like a really unique, different way, which is exactly why she's in here today. And she is the founder of Right to Be Relevant. She's also a certified Myers Briggs practitioner, which is very exciting and why we asked you guys to just figure out what your Myers Briggs was. And Cait is here to talk to you about being your own version of an when you figure that out, aligning that with your business so that everything works and it's lovely. But she wants to talk a little bit today with you guys about giving yourself more clarity internally in the way that you manage your time and your energy, as well as externally in the way that you communicate and deliver things to your clients. And again, kind of tying that back to the elements of your Myers Briggs. So I can't wait until she shares her perspective with y'all. So welcome, Cait. We're really happy to have you.
Hey, thank you. I am so happy to be here. It was really hard to make this presentation, honestly, because there's so much to discuss and so much I would love to share with you. So hopefully we can get a nice high-level look at everything, and then if you have questions, I'm always around. But yeah, I'm about to throw a lot at you. So let's share the screen. Share. How are we looking?
We are good.
Okay, cool. Well, I can't see you, however, you can see my screen and me?
Yes, we can see both.
Okay, cool. If anything cool happens, let me know, because I can't see anyone. Actually, before I do that, I would like to observe who's in here. Hi. And just thanks for being here fully. I'm really excited to share this with you. And the way I think this would go best is if we just keep it casual, and when you hear something you don't understand, not if, when, say, hey, what do you mean by that? Or if you have an example that pops up, that always, I think, especially with this Myers Briggs stuff, always helps other people learn, oh, that's happened to me before, or oh, I can relate to that. So let's keep this casual, and please chime in so we can all learn from one another here. And when Nick emailed me earlier this week, he said, and we'll get to this a little later, but he mentioned that a couple people were able to do their Myers Briggs. Do we have is there a chat in here, or?
So the way that it works is we don't have chat like Zoom does, but you're allowed to click on the channels to the side that you see. So assignments and calendar and stuff.
Right. Okay.
I'm trying to remember. I think we had posted it in the calendar what everyone's was, but I wrote it down if you'd like me to share. So Michelle is an INFJ.
INFJ. Cool.
I'm an INTJ.
You're an INTJ. Okay.
Yes. Nick is an ENTP.
Nick, ENTP. Cool.
And then everybody else is going to have to share because we did not hear from y'all.
Hi, I'm Claire.
Hey, Claire.
I am INFP.
INFP. Cool. Thanks for sharing.
I'm Darcy.
Hey, Darcy.
Hi, I'm an ENTJ.
ENTJ. Cool.
Hello, I'm Christy, and I'm an ENFP.
Christy is an ENFP. All right. Awesome.
I'm just turning on my computer because mine's written down. on my laptop in my office.
Beautiful.
So I got two of them. I don't know if that's weird. I got INTJ-A and then -T. It was
Okay.
like a half.
I don't know what that means because that's from. Did you take it on 16 personalities?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have like a little bit of it's a strange situation in the world of personality assessments because it's very misleading that you actually can't take the Myers Briggs anywhere online for free. So it's the 16 personalities uses the same letters, similar letters, not the same, but similar letters. However, it is a different coding system and a different assessment pulley. So I'm not sure what their dash, that's Stanley, he's ES.
Oh yeah, we've all got pets that'll pop in.
He's an
The
ES.
T is for turbulent, and the A is for like not apathetic, but something like that. So like how
Assertive. It said
Assertive.
assertive.
that you want.
Assertive.
Assertive.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's like a whole other layer, I guess 16 personalities added on that I'm not familiar with, but very cool. Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get in here. All right, anybody else didn't get to share, or is that everyone? And what was your name, that last person that spoke?
Chelsea.
Me, Michelle, or Chelsea?
Chelsea.
So
All right, so I don't see any S's in here. That's interesting. We'll talk about that. Cool. Here. All right, so being your own version of enough. This is like I said, it was tough to narrow down. But what I mean by your own version of enough, I come from the school of thought that if you're not clearly identifying your own expectations for yourself and your own standards, that means you're probably meeting someone else's standards, or you're you're not aligned with your own set of expectations. All right, I just want to this real quick, sorry. All right, we're gonna do this. I don't think I'll be able to do the whole thing without seeing everybody. And Erin, remind me what time would be good to wrap up?
These typically last about an hour.
Okay, cool. So if everyone has a notebook and paper in front of them, I'd like you to, you're gonna draw your web. So start with the center and go ahead and write your name in the middle of your notebook and circle it. Now around that center circle, I want you to think of your roles, your many different roles, and just go ahead and surround your center circle with your different roles. Go ahead.
do you mean roles in life?
We're all asking the same question.
Yep, roles in life.
Okay, so business and personal and all the rest.
Yeah, whatever comes top of mind.
I'm sorry.
You could, yeah.
As in R, right?
ROLES. So like business owner, cat mom,
Perfect.
computer tech wizard, I would put on mine. And if we sat here all day, you could probably fill a whole notebook full of roles. We're so many different things. Let's just stick with the ones that are super top of mind for you today. What are some, if you want to shout them out, what are some roles that you put on your web?
Beyonce.
Yes.
I love it.
What does that role look like?
Well, currently it means attending to Nick's every needs because he doesn't have one of his arms. Well, he broke his clavicle bone.
Oh,
So-
man.
Can't do like literally anything. I'm like cooking for him. I might as well just cut things up and like hand it to him.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's an important role. Okay, what other roles?
Start with the
I have
work
to say,
because that's
Go
where my head went to first. I went right to the work roles.
Okay, what did those? Can you name a couple of those for me?
So I did business owner, web designer, strategist, and then I was like, let's not put only work stuff. So then I put traveler, friend, sister, and gardener because I grow my own veggies now.
Nice. Okay, cool. All right, so we have all of these many different roles, and I'm sure everyone here put business owner on their web somewhere, right? Or something to that effect. So if you went out on the street right now and you asked a couple different people on the street, describe a business owner to me, what are some things you think they would say?
Busy.
Busy.
Blue collar, which is funny because I don't feel like I'm blue collar, really. But yeah.
Ooh, I like that one.
There's a lot of like industry where I live. So business owners are usually like plumber.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I think if I went out in Baltimore City, it would probably be like professional. Like if I was in Harbor East, they might say like professional looking or something like that. So if we're not clearly identifying our own version of business owner is, we're going to be subconsciously following suit, no pun intended, of what a business owner is, right? So the whole idea of this discussion is basically, let's not do that. Let's identify what is our version of business owner? What is my version of fiance? What is my version of cat mom? What does that look like to me? Because if we're not tuned in to our own definitions, then what are we following, right? So in a situation when we are not tuned in to our own version of business owner, our authentic self actually gets replaced. So you know how you wrote yourself in the center of your web? If you were more aligned and concerned with being the best business owner, your authentic self would be shifting all the way to the outside of your web, and your role would then replace your authentic self in your web. So that's not the goal, right? The goal is to keep your authentic self here in the center and have these many roles surrounding you. These roles complement who we are, they are not us. So you are so many things beyond being a business owner. That's not your identity. Your identity is your authentic self. So that's what we're going to be talking about a lot today. Setting your own expectations and defining them and figuring out which expectations are going to complement what you actually want and need in your life. Because each and every one of us want and need something different. So it's our responsibility to figure out what those wants and needs are and then to advocate for them. That's a two-part thing because you can't advocate for needs that you don't know are there. So part one is tuning in and really noticing. So, oh, wait a second. I'm really miserable when I have to do X, Y, Z. Oh, I really love this. So this is all about noticing, right? So that's the tuning in part. And then comes advocating. Now that I noticed I don't like that, I'm not going to do that. Or I'm going to find a way to outsource that. Now that I noticed I really like that, I'm going to find a way to do more of it. It seems simple, right? But if we're moving too quick, we miss these things. And then we blink and we say, I'm really stressed out and out of alignment. Is any of this resonating so far? Cool. Any questions or thoughts that showed up for you? All right, so I got certified to share the Myers Briggs with people, but I am anything that's going to help you do that tuning in, right? So Enneagram, I actually don't really know much about it at all, but Enneagram's another tool. The DISC assessment, there's so many, right? So anything that's going to help you tune in, I love it. So tonight we're talking about the Myers Briggs specifically. And like I said before, there's a ton of information here. So this really is a high level look at type. So hopefully it gets your wheels turning a little bit. But be patient with yourself. And if you're not sure what your preference is, that's okay too. Hopefully it's an invitation to continue to tune in and notice things. So we're going to learn about the Myers Briggs preferences. And then we're going to talk about how you can honor them and be kind to them. We already touched on this first myth about the Myers Briggs, so there isn't a free MBTI online. It really is a thorough process. I think it's a misconception that finding your Myers Briggs type is like it's like one of those quizzes, like, what kind of potato are you? It's not that simple. We're so complicated. Like, this stuff is so complicated. So it's not as easy as knowing what kind of potato you are. Obviously, I am a loaded baked potato. However, it's still taking me years to figure out if I prefer extroversion or introversion. So it's really a journey to figure out your type. And that takes me to number 2, which is there's no right or wrong type. So this tool is really meant to be inviting and informative and not limiting. So maybe you've had this experience, or you know someone who's had this experience, like, oh, I took the Myers Briggs years ago at work and they told me I was this. And it can kind of feel like a diagnosis almost, like a limiting thing. And it's really not intended to be like that. It's intended to be an open invitation to, look at your preferences. Yeah. So those are really important points to keep in mind as we talk about Myers Briggs. There's no right or wrong. We're talking about, real quick, to nail this home, drive this home, let's go ahead and sign your name at the top of that paper. First and last name. And let's see, Christy? Where's Christy? Which hand did you write with?
My right hand.
When I asked you to sign your name, were you like, what hand do I use?
Nope.
You just went for it. So is it safe to say that you prefer your right hand over your left?
Yes.
Okay, so like easy as that, that's what we're talking about with Myers-Briggs preference. So now everyone take the pen in your other hand and sign underneath that signature in your opposite non-dominant hand. Oh, Nick, you're doing great. Oh, no. All right, Christy, how did the left hand feel? How did that go?
Very exciting.
Oh.
It doesn't look anything like normal handwriting.
Did it take a little longer?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Did you have to work a little harder?
Very much so.
Yeah. So like this is what we're talking about with preference, right? So it's not even, if you sat here all day, Christy, for hours with your left hand and practiced, that would probably look pretty good by the end of the day, right? So we're not getting at what you even do the most of, because sometimes in life we get good at things that aren't actually our preference. We're trying to really declutter and say, okay, if I had no one to answer to and I could just have my preference, what's my preference? I would grab that pen with my right hand. Right. Thank you for participating, Christy. Put you on the spot there. All right, so these are the 8 preferences. So we have 4 preference pairs. So extroversion, introversion, sensing and intuition, thinking and feeling, and then judging and perceiving. So if you were to actually go online or work with a practitioner to get your assessment, you would receive a report with 1 letter from each of these rows showing you which you prefer. Basically, your right or your left, right? So this is all based on the theory of psychological type, and it's basically human behavior is not random just by chance. There are actually mental capacities and there's actually unique ways that we are behaving differently. There's a reason. So it's not just random the way we behave. There's actually type going on here. So any questions before we jump into the first preference pair? All right, so extroversion, introversion is the first one. So my goal and my hope for you in all of this is to be able to start to think what is my preference. So let's focus our conversation on that, and then we can talk about some ways to be kind to that preference. So this first preference pair is talking about what you tend to focus on, what energizes you, what drains you, and where you direct and receive your energy. So this first preference pair, extroversion and introversion, is all about basically what is energizing to you and what is draining to you. How do you direct and receive energy? So someone who prefers extroversion is going to be energized by their outside world, whereas someone who prefers introversion is more energized by concentrating and what's going on in their inner world. So the person who prefers extroversion, is probably going to appreciate communicating by talking things through. And that's the type of person that would really be energized by a brainstorm or any type of like gaining energy from that interaction. Whereas someone who prefers introversion might actually be drained by that. And this person is going to be more energized by turning inwards and reflecting. Initially, it seems like Christy, Darcy, Nick prefer extroversion, and Michelle, Aaron, Claire, and Chelsea prefer introversion. Let's start with...
That checks out.
What's that?
I said that checks out.
Does it?
Yeah, I think so, knowing them.
Okay. So someone who prefers introversion, might prefer communicating via writing, whereas someone who prefers extroversion might want to talk things through. Is that landing with the eyes in the group?
See, that's the one thing where it's the first two for me. Generally, if it's a client, don't call me. I hate getting on calls with clients. I prefer like emails and stuff. But Aaron and Michelle both know, like the three of us constantly use voice notes. So that's where, and I've always said I'm better at talking than in writing. So I think it depends. Like that's the one thing where it's like, if I know them well, then I probably prefer talking. But in terms of business, like with clients, don't call me, please.
Okay.
Don't call me.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point. Someone who prefers introversion does like more of an intimate connection. So even though it is talking things through, it's in a small group, ideally. So maybe with one person, two people. Beyond that, we're getting into E territory, probably. So a couple of notes here for how to be kind to your own preference of EI. So for those of you who do prefer introversion, it's all about understanding your energy and how much of it you have, right? So getting intentional about how you're using your energy. If you know you have back-to-back calls one day, first off, you might not want to do that to yourself. Second off, give yourself space afterwards to process. Give yourself some time to reflect and turn inward and actually process what's going on in those meetings. Someone who prefers extroversion, let me stop there. For those who prefer introversion, is that resonating with you? And do you have any questions about how you can honor your introversion preference?
like I get when you say don't do back-to-back calls. I won't do more than like 2 calls in an entire week.
What happens if you do?
My housemates laugh at me because I stress power walk and I just like do laps around the house. I honestly sweat. Like it makes me really nervous. I get really bad anxiety. I did this like podcast interview thing with a previous client. So I knew her. We worked together for like 6 weeks and built out her website. But she was doing this podcast thing and she's like, it's going to be live. And as soon as she told me that, I was literally downstairs 2 hours before, like sweating. And my housemate was like, are you all right? Like, no, I'm just so nervous. I don't know what to do. Like, cancel it. Like, I was like, I can't cancel it now. It's too late.
So
It was
that
like-
was a lot of energy to give in that
Yeah,
situation, it sounds
I
like.
kid you not, I was wearing like a little sundress and a jumper. And this was like a month ago. I live in Australia, so it was still kind of winter a month ago. I sweat through the sweater and had to take it off like mid podcast. Like
oh man.
I had to take a shower after. It was bad.
Yeah, that's fair. I
Yeah.
think that's a but yeah. Is there any let's go to extroversion, then we can circle back. So those who prefer extroversion, some tips here is that perhaps some solo time is good. So if you do prefer extroversion, maybe your first default is not to spend alone time, right? Because you are more energized by talking things through with a friend or being around people that's energizing to you. So maybe that's an invitation to take a look. Where am I, am I spending time with myself? Do I have a okay balance here? And it's common for me to talk to E's who say, I hate being alone. I really don't, I don't find that enjoyable. And I think there's a lot going on there, but I think a big part of it too is that it might not be energizing.
See, I love being alone.
Yeah.
But I'm always surrounded by people. Like, I'm very much like an extroverted personality. I definitely I am constantly on 45-minute drives between Denton and Dallas. And so like that's my time where I literally just call everybody because I don't want to, unless we're both super, super busy, I don't want to spend all day texting the same person. Like I will if like we're trying to take care of stuff, but we're both too busy to talk on the phone. But like everybody in my dad, I'm still on my family's cell phone plan because it's cheaper. So I just send them money for my portion. But like my dad is always commenting about how I spend so many hours a day on the phone versus like my text messages are like and all of that. But I am also that person that like I just want to put the phone down and like in the evenings, like that's sometimes this class, like doing these sessions are really hard for me because like the evening time is kind of my time where I want to be alone. I'm like, okay, I've talked all day. I've caught up with everybody. Leave me alone. Go away. I'm done.
Yeah. And that's a good point to bring up too is E's have a battery life as well. It's not just I's who need, will get drained from a certain amount. Like we all have a battery life, no matter your preference here. So yeah. So I think also maybe a tip throughout your day is to maybe not wait till the end of the day to give yourself that energy. Maybe find a way to put that throughout your day. Yeah.
Question quickly.
Yeah.
Is it normal to like switch between the two? Because I feel like 10 years ago, maybe not even that long. Yeah, probably about 10 years ago, I was so extroverted. I hated being alone. I always had to be around people. I was also like big in traveling and backpacking and stuff like that. And then I had this like kind of switch. And now I don't like being around people. Is that normal? Does that happen like when you hit like different age brackets or like different stages of your life?
Well, first off, what is normal? That word is
Bad choice of word.
Yeah. I think if that's your experience, that's your experience. And I think that happens for sure. I mean, we're always what's been your journey the past couple of years in terms of self-love and understanding yourself?
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Have you been on that journey?
Yeah, I went through some major life changes.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not in Australia.
Yeah.
I moved to the other side of the world. So
yeah, like that's some stuff. Yeah. I think it's as you're finding your journey towards your authentic self, maybe your preferences are becoming more obvious to you. I think Carl Jung has a theory about there's a first half, a midlife, and a second half. And in the first half, you're focused on accommodating others and accommodating the external world. And you have what he called midlife, and then which is basically a shift preparing you for second life, which is alignment with accommodating your authentic self. So first half is like hey world, what do you need from me? I'm here. How do I be a person in this society? What's it like to be a woman? What's it like to, all these things. I'm picking up all these cues. What gets me love? What's, gets me appreciation in this world? And then the midlife. And then the second half is like, okay, but like, is that working for me? I'm going to do what works for me. So as you go through that journey, you're basically prioritizing your authentic wants and needs as opposed to what the world might want from you.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I think I always say to anyone who's having a hard time differentiating, like, I don't know, I do both. First off, the answer is you do both, just like you use your right and left hand all day, every day. But which do you prefer? So if you're having a hard time and you're going back and forth, that's a great invitation to literally just start to notice. Do I actually like this? Okay, I said yes to this party. Do I actually want to go? And am I enjoying this? Or do I feel like, what's my why here? Thanks for asking that. Anything else on EI before we jump to the next one? Next is sensing and intuition. So we just talked about EI. That's basically what's energizing and what's draining to you. Now we're going to talk about sensing and intuition. This is basically, how do you see the world? What do you become aware of? Make this larger so you can see it. What do you become aware of? What type of information? So like when we all look out into the world, what type of information are you noticing first? So sensing and intuition, S and N, because the I was taken by introversion. So sensing, both these people are standing and looking out at this field. Someone who prefers sensing is seeing this gorgeous, beautiful, intricate flower right here, right? Someone who prefers intuition first is seeing this whole field in front of them. They might see that flower and back into it, but at first, you're taking in the big picture. So this person who prefers sensing is seeing the concrete facts. So give me the specifics. I want to know the reality, the facts, the who, what, when. Give me the quick, concrete facts, right? That's where that person's starting. Where the person who prefers N, which is everybody in this room, sees the possibilities first. So you might back into the concrete reality and the facts, but where your mind is starting is with the possibilities. So what could be here? Yeah, it's pretty unique. And it's funny because this is a group of business owners, so it's interesting. But yeah, it's unique to be talking about this and have all, not one letter represented in the room, which is, look at us. Hello, N's. Yeah.
Are you also an N?
I am. No fault.
So really the whole entire, that's so interesting.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what I mean by to a fault. So one of the hardest things not hardest, but most interesting things in life that I've learned after digging into the Myers Briggs stuff is how little I incorporate the S. So it's very easy for me to get carried away with the ideas and lose sight of, I'll give you an example. I bought a house because the door was blue. And I was like, that door is super cute. Like, I love that door. And I just started picturing us living there. I was like, this is the vibe. Like, this is cool. Didn't look at the facts at all. Like, it could have been made of chocolate, which would have been a plus. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't looking at the materials of the house. I wasn't looking at the price, the square footage. Does this actually make any effing sense? Like, so that's an example of me having so much N and not pulling that S into, those are the facts that I could have used in that situation. I'm learning the hard way to pull in that S, right? Like, you got to have it's good to know your preference, and it's also good to know, okay, I'm not naturally going to go to that S, so I need to maybe like manually pull that in before I make a big decision. Make sure I'm actually looking at the facts as well.
It's funny. I had a different comment to make, but my first business was house painting business, and that's actually a very common thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, women see the front door, so you make it look really nice because that's all they Yeah.
They got me.
I don't think
They
it's a
got me.
women thing, but it's like a large percent of the population thing.
Okay. I would.
But
I would bet. I was gonna say I would bet my house that S's would not fall for that.
yeah,
Someone who
interesting.
prefers S is like, yeah, but you can paint. There's paint at Home Depot. You can paint any door. Like practically, that makes no sense, you know. So that S is thinking in a concrete way. Yeah.
I have two questions.
What you got?
The first one's probably easier. Do you know whether is this based on like a percentage of the population? So like we're all evenly split. I know the personality types as a whole. There's like certain percentages are this and that.
Yeah.
But is it like biology or is it?
I'll look into. I'll look for the latest data on that, and I'll send it to Erin to send to you all because I think that is very interesting. And there's, you know, as we talk about thinking, feeling too, there's different. Gosh, we could theorize all day about like correlation with gender, correlation with like, you know, upbringing. There's tons of things you could think of here, but they say that you have your type, you know, your whole life. It's just a matter of how you express it. Varies throughout your life.
My next question is more related to trauma, so it might not be like something you can answer. But do you know how much of this affects our like fight or flight response or like ability to process trauma?
That's a really good question. But I haven't really. I wouldn't be the expertise in that. But something comes to mind that I'll share, and I don't know if this is really getting at your question, but I'll share it anyway, and maybe that'll get us closer. I feel like, so with your 4-letter type, you get your type dynamics, which is not only which you prefer here and there, it's basically like how are these 4 letters interacting with one another. So with that, you learn your preferred number 1 go-to. For me, my type, that's intuition, this N. My least preferred is S. So when I you know, definitely am working through anxiety. When I am most anxious, I notice this S come up to play. That's my cue. It's very interesting there. I think there's a lot there. Like I'll give you an example. So I was a bridesmaid in a wedding last year, and it was a stressful situation for me. The relationships were kind of funky, and it was really stressful for me. And the assignment was to wear a light pink dress. And I think I bought like 15 light pink dresses because I was zoomed the fuck in. I was obsessed with like figuring out these nuts and bolts, these concrete little details that meant nothing. Like I lost my normal ability to zoom out and see the big picture. I was zoomed in on this concrete fact that in the long run didn't matter at all. So that's a really long way of saying I think there's a lot here when it comes to not that's trauma, but you know, I think there's a lot here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have like a more specific question in mind? Like, what are your thoughts on like?
The reason I was asking is because last night I had a really scary and like unfortunate incident in like a grocery store, and like I just feel like, was I more inclined to feel that way because that's my personality, or because like I felt like I was in danger, or because I'm an N, so I'm seeing like all the possibilities.
Were you thinking of the possibilities? I was gonna say, were you thinking of like, oh, what could happen here, or what could potentially become of this?
Yeah, like I sat in the parking lot of the grocery store for 20, 30 minutes until I could get on the phone with someone, basically, because I was like, possibilities were like, this person is
you went with it.
Spiraling out of control.
Yes. No, your girl over here is familiar with that. And I think I'm so glad you're sharing this, and I'm sorry that whatever that happened to you. I think in those moments, read this column. What are the facts here? Let me get back to the present reality. Let me get back to the facts, the specifics, right? Because if you prefer that N, your mind is freely thinking of all those possibilities. So if you feel yourself spiraling there, go to the realities. Bring yourself home to what is instead of thinking of what could be.
So it's not necessarily that, okay, so I always thought of it as like, I'm better at thinking of future possibilities. Therefore, I'm going to try my best to always do that. But Oh,
But
okay.
it's your processes. So like it's like the way it's just like the way you see the world. It's like
Yeah, this
your
is really
home base.
helpful. Thank you.
Good. This information has helped me with my mental health immensely in like those little stories that I shared. Like it's, I should have come home to the facts in those moments. So anytime you feel yourself thinking of all those endless possibilities, I like time out. I'm gonna go, what is? Get back to what is. Yeah.
I'm trying to write this down, but my pen is dead.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's super helpful. That idea of like if you're focused on the future, grounding yourself with it's almost like grounding yourself with the question of what is. It's almost like if you're having a panic attack, there's that technique of like yourself with those 5 things. Like
Yes.
what is like what can you smell? What can you taste? What can you whatever? Yeah, that's wow. Just that is like I feel like I can take on the world now.
Yes. I feel like we could do a whole nother one just on end stuff since we're all ends. We could like really, really go nuts with that.
Absolutely.
So in this same spirit as business owners, I'll tell you the things that have been the biggest pain points for me are the S things, the nuts and bolts. Do the reporting, do the taxes, do the numbers that are not theoretical, they're actual and they're concrete. I really struggle with that as an N. So that's my cue to myself to say, hey, let's pull in some S here. I know you don't, this is not your preference. This is not your right hand. However, let's block off some time and let's do it because we got to do it so that you can pay your taxes. Thinking of concrete bags. I think we already talked about that. Anything else on SN before we get to thinking, feeling? I have about 20 minutes or so left. Thinking, feeling is the third. Let's see what we have here. Feely. Kind of 50-50 here. Cool. So, thinking, feeling. This one is how you make decisions. So we talked about extroversion, introversion. That's what is energizing, how you direct and receive energy. We talked about sensing, intuition. That's the lens through which you see the world. So now we're talking about thinking, feeling, which is how do you make decisions? So what is important to you when you're making a decision? So all of us, no matter our preferences, we're all capable of making perfectly good decisions. What we're getting at here is just what is important to you when you're making that decision. Someone who prefers thinking is more driven in their decision making by the logic behind everything. So a T is really taking a step out of the situation to objectively look at the parts and see what's going on. So they want an objective truth. That's the best decision to them. Whereas someone who prefers feeling, they're going to take a step into the situation. Let me see what's going on here. Let me see the values and the individual relationships involved here. And I am going to make the best decision, which will bring harmony to everyone. So with thinking, it's more of a cause and effect. Let me analyze the situation. Whereas feeling is more of a let me go in and apply compassion and empathy first and focus on relationships. And remember, it's tempting to go out of bounds on this one, but remember with this, we're talking about decision making. So this is not like how nice of a person you are. We're all nice, whether you're T or F. So it's not that at all. This is really just remember what is important to you when you're making a decision. What are you taking into consideration?
This is so yeah. Oh no, go ahead.
No, you. I was gonna ask if anybody had anything.
Yeah, no, it's just so funny to me because reading like the first couple ones of the feeling, there was like a time, I guess like early college where I was an INFJ and I was very focused on like the individual values, like making sure everyone's treated individually. But then you get to the offer praise versus providing a critique to improve. and the logical side of me comes out, and it's like, no, I'm not gonna praise somebody if it's like wrong, if it's like, and then I'm like, oh no, I'm definitely a thinking. Like, it's just funny to see that
Yeah.
come out.
Yeah, so to you, it didn't sit right with you to make a decision that wasn't rooted in like cause and effect. So like objectively, logically, this doesn't make sense.
And there's this idea of like fairness at an individual level is as important as fairness at like a group level. Like everyone, which like the equality versus the individual aspect. It's more
Yes.
for everybody versus like, oh, does it make sense specifically for this one person? But make sure that everyone individually is happy. It's more of the group thing, which I guess goes kind of back to that seeing things from a larger perspective.
Yeah. Yes.
Interesting.
And it goes to like, so this is a big one where like, let's go back to that web you drew. Look at your roles, right? So what are the requirements of your roles? Do you think I'm trying to think. Like, do you think someone who prefers thinking is going to feel aligned in a kindergarten classroom? That might be not fun for them because they're like, this doesn't objectively make sense. There's not much like individual relationship here, right? So let's do an opposite of that. What's a job you think someone who prefers feeling might have a tough time, or not a tough time, but feel out of alignment in? So a job that would require a lot of thinking, analytical, logic, cause and effect reasoning.
Maybe like a lawyer?
Yeah, or like a judge. If like
Yeah.
someone who prefers feeling is sitting up there, they're probably like, let's say someone comes up and I have a speeding ticket, they're gonna be like, oh well, why were you speeding? So a feeler would want to be like, oh, did you had a bad day? Like tell me, you know what I mean? Like let me take into consideration your unique circumstance. Whereas a thinker is just more of the logic of no, this is the law, this is what happened, so objectively this is what makes the most sense.
And then understanding that people can kind of toe the line of both of them too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really important to remember that on this one because it is tempting to think that the extremes, there's extremes of everything. Just like on the SN one, I was an extreme N when I bought a house because it had a blue door, right? There's extremes to all these. There's the extreme E who never spends time alone. There's the extreme, you know what I mean? So there are extremes to all of these. However, that balance is important. And giving yourself the grace and compassion to know, I prefer thinking, but I am a very empathetic and compassionate person. So yes, it's definitely a balance here.
Absolutely.
So some tips here. Watch the way you're talking to yourself. So someone who prefers thinking is more apt to have that analytical mind, right? So I'm objectively looking and I'm noticing what's wrong here so that I can improve it. Be careful if you're doing that on yourself. So remember to have that balance, bring in that compassion, and give yourself the ability to have some self-empathy and some self-compassion. For feeling, it's common for someone who prefers feeling, let's say they are on that extreme, to really not be taking into consideration the logic of the situation. Perhaps that person might be making decisions based on, I just don't want anyone to get their feelings hurt, or I just don't want trouble, right? So make sure if you are preferring that feeling, don't let your own wants and needs get lost in the sauce. So representing that harmony that you love, that's great. Just make sure you're also balancing that out with like advocating for what you want and need. Someone who
You
prefer-
tell. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I have so many questions.
I love it.
I personally just can't see the difference between these two. To me, I feel like I don't need to pick one or the other. They're both like the same. But I wonder if that's because I am the N and I have the ability to see all things at once versus do you feel like an S is more like their percentage or whatever is more stable for this?
Not necessarily that the S is more a stable perception, I don't think, but I do hear what you're saying with the end. You're thinking of all these possibilities. Well, sometimes I do this, sometimes I do this, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely understandable. And I think, again, that's an invitation to, from here, when you leave this call, start to notice, like, what am I looking at when I'm making a decision? Am I, and again, just like you use your right and left hand all day, you use both of these all the time. So with your preference and finding your 4-letter preference, it's noticing what you want to do. So like what really feels authentic. Like if no one was watching, this is what you would want to do.
It's funny because I'm also very ambidextrous. So I feel like this is probably why I struggle.
I was giving a presentation in front of like in person, like 2 years ago. And I did like that handwriting activity and the person was ambidextrous. I was like, damn it. This doesn't work. Played yourself. Yeah, so I think here, start to tune in and notice what is feeling right. Let me ask you a question though. Let's say a friend calls you and is really upset about something happening in their life. What's your initial response?
Probably to fix the situation. But then again, lately I'm a lot more in tune to how like kind of disrespectful that is. So I've kind of trained myself, I guess, out of doing that.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Someone who prefers thinking is taking a task-oriented approach to things. So like they're going to want to help fix this situation, right? How do we solve this problem? Someone who prefers feeling is pulling up a chair, grabbing a cup of coffee and saying, let me see and hear you. Like, let me hold space for you to feel what you got to feel right now. And then, yes, let's talk about how we can fix it. But first, that empathy, right? So someone who prefers thinking, I was doing this with someone and they said perfectly, the problem is not that my friend is crying. The problem is that they have a problem. So let's fix the problem. Like that's how the T is thinking, right? So like, we got a problem here, let's fix it. And then they won't be crying.
I'm that person. I always have to find out from them because I'm that person that I just want to jump in and fix it. So when I'm in that situation, I'm like, okay, so are you telling me this because you want me to help? Or are you telling me this because you just need to vent and get it off your chest? Because that's going to change my reaction to everything you're saying. Do you want to hear the logic and let's go through how to fix it? Or do you just want to vent because you know it's messed up and you just need to get it off your chest and move on? And I have to know that because otherwise I'm going to piss you off with my reaction.
Spoken like a true T. I love it. Well, and that's great self-awareness that you're practicing is saying, instead of just giving the way you function, you're acknowledging, okay, not everyone wants this all the time. Let me first, put that invitation out there. What's the goal here? Yeah. I think that's awesome.
Well, that's just trial and error.
Yeah, exactly. That's good. Sometimes people live their whole life without noticing that that's not working and they just keep doing it and then they wonder why things are strange. So I think it's good that you notice that. I have like a pack of cards for each of these that have pictures and stuff, and the one is tools and the other one is a cup of coffee for this TF. I've definitely been in an argument before and like held that card up and be like, you're giving me this, I need this, I just want the cup of coffee. So
Joel brain is very happy with that. I love that. It's like the fixing of the problem versus the sitting down. I love that so much.
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point, Darcy, too. Backing up to EI, extroversion, introversion. As someone who prefers extroversion, it's important to notice that not everyone is ready to talk things through all the time. So saying, do you have space for this right now, is a great sentence to introduce into your vocabulary if you haven't already. Like, offering that same invitation that you were describing for TF. That's, again, like, if we zoom all the way out and look at all this Myers Briggs stuff, it's really like an aha moment of like, wow, okay, there's a whole other half of the world that doesn't process things the way I do. Like, not everyone thinks this way. It's fascinating. But if we don't take the time to notice all these things, then we can just put our head down and think, why is no one getting it? Why is no one thinking the way I am? Yeah. All right, thinking, feeling. Let's go to JP and then we'll kind of wrap everything up. Judging, perceiving. So this is the last preference pair. Looks like we have another about 50-50 split on the JP. So this is how much structure you like or need, and how you approach the outside world, basically. So someone who prefers judging is appreciating having a method, a structure, and a schedule. So coming to closure on an idea so we can move on to the next idea. Whereas someone who prefers perceiving wants to keep their options open and remain flexible. So this person is more, let me take this as it comes, as opposed to having a method or a structure. Is anyone like, I'm so J or I'm so P?
Oh, I'm definitely a J. I'm definitely J. I'm so J. It's so bad. My boyfriend's a P, and it's awful.
What, in what ways? Like, can you think of an example where the JP clashes?
Like, we live in a van and it's small and there's a way to do things because it just doesn't work in my mind unless you do the structure the way it's made. And he's just like, I'll put this here. I'll put that there. It drives me nuts.
Yes. What is a time where you think his P has worked for the two of you in your relationship? His preference to go with the flow and respond to emerging information or be pressure prompted. Like, has your van ever broken down?
Oh my God. Yes. This is a conversation of all the time. I've never really thought of it that way. I think I probably just definitely think that my way is the best way. I'm not gonna lie. That's just the type of person that I am.
Okay.
But his F helps me all the time.
There you go.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Does anybody else? So someone said they were so J or so P.
Oh, I'm definitely J. And this photographer guy, like basically my business partner, he is literally the exact opposite of me and Myers Briggs, except we're both E's. And so it works really well for the most part because it's like he's very emotional about like drives things on his relationships and his emotions, and he's more go with the flow. And I'm like, here's the schedule. We got to stick to it. Like, we have deadlines. And so that keeps him on track. But then it also kind of helps me loosen up a little bit. And like, we've had situations, even like we were doing a photo shoot for somebody with a ton of followers, and like all this stuff was going on. We had hairstylist, wardrobe stylist, makeup artist, everybody there. And one of our stylists didn't let us know. And then all of a sudden, 3 hours into the schedule, he's like, hey, I just woke up. I'm so sorry. I'm on my way. I'm like, he's 3 hours late. And we had made a rule because people were being more and more late, that if you are late and there's no communication, when you show up, you're an assistant. You don't get, when the credits come out on the shoot, you don't get full credit. You're not the lead wardrobe stylist. You're the assistant wardrobe stylist. Same thing for everybody else because everybody's always late. 3 hours late, we said, and he just wanted to let him show up. And I was like, you can't do that. I was like, you cannot. I was like, he needs to show up still. But I was like, you can't. I was like, because you already did this to our other wardrobe stylist, because we have two, and you made him an assistant. I was like, so now you have the other wardrobe stylist that's already here and witnessing this. I was like, you cannot. He's like, but I don't want to make Stevie mad. I don't want Stevie to be mad. I don't want him to not show up. I don't want him to hate me. And I'm like, and I had to like literally beat his head into the wall. Like, this is a business decision. It's not personal. I love Stevie. Stevie's a good friend of mine. But at the end of the day, if we've already done this to Dexter, we can't not do it to Stevie. You have to be fair. You have to be reasonable. And it's just, if Stevie takes this personally, that's on Stevie, because it's like, I was like, Marcos, you and I, we butt heads in business, but our business relationship is separate from our personal. And if you can't separate the two. And so like, I literally and then he was like, I need to like make sure Stevie's okay. And I'm like, make sure he's okay and then move on. You don't need to baby him. But he was so worried about that emotional connection that he then followed him around the entire shoot, like kissing his ass.
Yeah, so maybe he could have pulled. Do you hear the TF in this? So maybe he could have pulled in some tea there and been like, okay, let me actually objectively look at this. You're right. I do see these moving parts. We need to treat everyone fairly or else we're going to have a situation on our hands.
Yeah.
So, and I think he's probably grateful for your J in those shoots because that sounds very stressful if you didn't have that schedule mapped out.
Oh yeah, and like I literally have it pulled up and I'm like adjusting. If we get ahead of schedule, I move everything up so that we don't either finished early and can do more.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna be like, oh, well, we have an extra 30 minutes. Hair, you get an extra 30 minutes. Nope, you still get an hour and you better make it quick. We're going.
How about the P's in the group?
I so see that. Because I built the website for them. And I don't think I emailed Marcos once. If I needed anything, I was like, Darcy, this is what I need. And she literally was sending me like graphs and forms and layouts. And like, I think I sent one email to Marcos and then I was like, I regret that decision. And then I just copy and pasted it in an email to her.
Well, and it was funny because I'm like sitting there. So I have access to his emails. And I'm like, Marcos, Chelsea has emailed you. Chelsea has emailed you. And he's like, I'll get to it. He's had this interview with this big magazine and it's just sitting in his inbox. And I'm like, I can't answer the questions for you. Like, answer the fucking questions.
Yeah, I so see that. Very much so.
The person who wants to send an email, he doesn't want to talk to them on the phone. I'm like, Marcos, you're going to go back and forth with these people for 10 days. You're going to lose them as a client. Pick up the phone and call them. Like, So it's fun.
You're bringing up a lot of good points. I was going to ask Claire, I had down that you preferred INFP. So tell me about your preference for P.
Yeah, I'm the Marcos in that situation for
I was
sure.
gonna say.
Like, but then, like, yeah, I know to see both sides for sure and like slow down and whatever. So yes, it's a good one to have in a partner. I might be. Now seeing how well two people can work together when they are two different ones too, like having a business partner that was like very much a Darcy personality could be like beneficial to me. I'm like, I wish someone was on my ass like that. And so that's just like a choice I could make when starting like a team and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, such a good point to bring up. I think it's very tempting to hire your type because you're like, I know that. I've seen that before. That feels good. I like that. When really that means the other half of the letters are not represented. So maybe if you don't have that S, maybe you are missing those concrete details and those little facts that you might be overlooking for the sake of the big idea, right? There's huge opportunity to find appreciation for all types in all of this. In your relationships, in your friendships, in business, it's huge. What do you think a society would look like if we had all N's like us and no S's?
I don't know. Would it be more
Probably
fun?
dope. But it would be a lot of really cool ideas, right? But who's doing them? Who's implementing them? Who's making sure the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted? Who's making sure that it logistically actually is tangible, right? So
is like list making a good strategy for this kind of thing? Because I was feeling like the intuition would be like in a business sense, there's so much to get done. And then there's the little things like the taxes, So like just being able to cross them off one at a time, I think would really help me. And I can see myself doing that. That might be why.
Yeah. I actually just started offering a weekly clarity session for people because I wanted someone to do that for me because I have all these ideas and there's not enough time in the day and I just like I'm everywhere but nowhere at the very same time. So I think getting either a friend or your new friend Cait to hear your brain dump and help you organize it would be very helpful for an N or a P. Yeah. Get all your moving parts where you want them to be so that they can serve you because you do have these great ideas, right? Like you're not short on ideas. No one in this room is short on ideas, right? So it's a matter of finding the logistics to make them happen. And first gain clarity on whether you actually like them or not, whether they're aligned. All right, well, I know we're a couple minutes past 8, so I want to be respectful of time, but all in all, I think the two key points here in all of this is to pay attention to what feels good and what doesn't, and then to do those things and advocate for them. So you you can't stand up for yourself if you don't know what you're standing up for in your business, in your life, in your relationships. You have to first notice and allow yourself to have these preferences. So if I can leave you with anything, it would be continue to tune into yourself. You have all the answers. You know it's in there. It's just a matter of decluttering the noise and the external expectations. So it's really gaining clarity on what do I want and need. And then part 2 of that, I'm going to go get it. I'm going to advocate for it. I'm going to adjust my business so that it works for me and so that I'm not chasing someone else's version of business owner or whatever. Be kind to yourself. Everyone's preferences are so important. We need all of our preferences. We would be really out of balance as individuals, in relationships, as a society, if we didn't have this beautiful array of preferences. So I invite you to like find some joy in like, it's pretty cool that I am structured like this, or it's really cool that I'm spontaneous and I don't like lists at all. Like find ways to find compassion for those parts of you because they're awesome. Those are facts. All right, well, that's kind of all I had. And any questions or thoughts?
That was amazing.
Thank
We're-
you.
Cool.
I have so much
to have you come in for that like official Myers Briggs test. Because I know that I think we all took it on the 16 personalities.
Yeah.
Which is, I know we're not supposed to. We'll do that next
Oh,
time.
that's okay. Yeah. And like I said, it's just go into it with the knowledge that you are far more complicated than a quick online quiz. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think it's better to like dig through these things, talk about them, hear other people's experience, and it takes time. Like I said, I'm still trying to figure some of my letters out. So kind to yourself there. Yeah.
Well, if you want to tell everyone how they can, get in contact with you, if anyone wants to sign up for one of those clarity sessions, or I believe you have a course, please tell me if I'm wrong, or your affirmation decks, anything that you want to, talk about right now before you head out.
Yeah. So righttobirelevant.com is my website. This book free call button right here would be a great way for us to continue this conversation. If you have any more specific questions or if you just want to talk some more. The weekly clarity method, I created an ebook to share that method, which I think is especially helpful for N's and P's. So it's really a method to get everything out that's lingering in your mind and get it into action. With that book, I offer that session I mentioned, which is basically you show up, brain dump, and I do the rest of the work in organizing your thoughts and helping you get to a place where you're not feeling stuck. So yeah, that's the main thing. Oh, and the affirmation deck. So I have the affirmation cards for mothers, fathers, and then an original affirmation deck, which is basically cards that you can flip one each day to guide you into an intention to remind you of how freaking awesome you are.
I don't know if you guys can see me. So, Discord likes to kick me off for whatever reason. I'm the only person that happens to. It's every single week. It kicks me off at like 45. And sometimes my video doesn't come up, but I'm holding the cards up if you guys can see me, and they're just beautiful. I highly recommend them.
Take your word for it.
Yeah, just take your word for it.
Thanks, Erin. I'm glad you're enjoying them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I pull them at the beginning of strategy calls and things like that. But
Nice.
Amazing. And this was fantastic. I think this was the most amount of people that have come in a while. It's nice to have everybody here. I know, it's so lovely. So seriously, thank you again. And everyone reach out to Cait. I tagged her on my Instagram stories today. So you guys feel free to, connect with her. And thanks again. This was amazing.
Thank you so much, Erin. And thank you all for showing up so fully with your questions and stuff. Have fun noticing. And please know I'm here in your corner if you want to talk things through or learn some more. I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Good to meet you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be kind to yourself.
Hey, Chels.
Okay. That was the best training we've ever had.
literally fucking amazing. I love her.
I'm obsessed with her.
I love it. I'm so
I
glad
can
you
see you again too. That's so funny in terms of what is your thing? INTJ?
We are literally the same person. We're also both manifesting generators. Are you an
Yes.
8 as well? Because
Am I what?
are you an Enneagram 8?
I don't know. I'm gonna do that test today.
Definitely do. I'm gonna be a little afraid if you are, because we're gonna have to start going into like. I do know we're separate people though, because you're a Leo and I'm a Capricorn, so like we're good there.
That's so funny.
Hi Nick. Dude, we were texting back and forth the whole time. I was like, oh, you hear that? Because we're exact opposites as well. So like he's an ENTP or yeah. She was talking about like, oh, if you're an extrovert, like make sure you're asking introverts to like if they can hold space for you. And I'm texting them like, you hear that? Ask me to hold space next time. Like you ask me, I'm not ready for you. I'm not ready for you to talk to me yet.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I'm wondering like how we can build this in, like, because we've been working on our messaging of